Now, here's a man who's been making a difference in the community during COVID and lockdown. He's got a book out, a personal brand story. He's Steve Guest. He's from Walsall. He's a recruitment expert. He's a company based in Walsall, but he's been talking to people, doing a lot of Zoom stuff over the last 18 months, encouraging them, mentoring them, if you like. It's his second book, A Personal Brand Story. Steve, afternoon.
Good afternoon.
The first book, Top Biller. So you are a recruitment expert in the construction sector, principally.
Yes, for the last 15 years or so now.
So during lockdown, you were offering one-to-one help on Zoom because obviously it all ground to a halt, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the recruitment industry as a sector, the majority, certainly in the UK, we're all on furlough and sat at home, not really sure what was going to happen.
So in a way, you became an accidental mentor to people, not just here, not just local, but all over the world. Is that right?
Yeah, it kind of escalated quite quick, if I'm honest. I put a post out to say that I'm here if people needed a chat, a rant, a cry, just somebody to turn to. And if I'm honest, I thought I would probably get maybe 5 to 10 people book in, and it would be people that I knew or previous colleagues, or people that I'd worked with or had associated with. I put the post out and it escalated to the point where I ended up having 62 Zoom calls across the week and it was global. I mean, there was consultants from Japan, New Zealand, South Africa, Hong Kong, Switzerland, Australia, the US, Canada. The list was just endless. It was a crazy week.
And what sort of help and advice were they after? What were they looking for?
I think initially it was probably a bit of reassurance. It was, I suppose, an overview in terms of what's going to happen in the market. What can we do while we're on furlough? It gave them an opportunity to perhaps reassess how they've been working as a recruiter and what they could implement to change or add value. And the conversations varied across growing a personal brand, how to be that go-to person, that key person of influence in their market, but also how to perhaps gain a better structure and a better way of working. What was quite obvious was what I perhaps went into these calls thinking was perhaps a local or localised problem. Actually, it didn't matter where you were sat across the globe. The problems and pain points really were around the same sorts of areas.
And when you say a recruiter, basically you find people for certain jobs.
Correct, yes. So
you headhunt a lot of the time.
Yeah, I mean, that's part of it. So we will help job seekers find new employment, and we'll find clients, people to fill that role that perhaps they've struggled to find suitable people for. And
you created, during lockdown, a sort of an online expert recruiter program, a sort of training program, didn't you?
Correct, yeah. I mean, I'm an ex-strategic qualified buyer by trade. I'm very process procedure driven. I'm very detailed, and over the last 15 years I've got copious amounts of notebooks that have really kind of documented how to be the perfect recruiter. And I think having had these discussions with so many recruiters, putting that into an online program that was accessible and could add value to lots of people seemed like something that was definitely in need, but also in the fact that I could add so much value and content back to the marketplace in which I've spent so much time. Well, your first book, Top Biller, The Life of a Recruiter, was an Amazon bestseller. The new one, A Personal Brand Story. Just explain the title for that. And when you talked a few moments ago about developing a brand, finding a brand, just explain what you mean by that. A lot of it comes from being the key person of influence in your market. So building a personal brand, when I first started recruiting, it was very much about how do you enable yourself to be that person that people go to, that person that people can find on social media or via other sources. Yeah, I mean, if a major company needs somebody in the construction industry, they're the first person they think of, or you want them to think of, to go to is you, to find that person. Correct. Yeah, Steve Guest. And that was very much the reason behind the first book, Top Biller. I wanted that to be, I suppose, my business card. I wanted that to differentiate me from every other recruiter because I became the recruitment consultant that had wrote a book. The personal brand story is a documentation of my journey over the last 2 years and how you create lots of I suppose, online facets where people can come and find you and then understand what you do to create and grow that business for you.
You have a podcast as well.
I do, the Guest List podcast.
Yep.
That's been born out of the pandemic, really, and through this journey where I'm an individual that likes to surround myself with entrepreneurial, motivational, inspirational people. So from a selfish perspective, it allows me to talk to really interesting people. But also, it continues and allows me to add further content back out into the market that then still builds that personal brand.
So the Guest List podcast, it's one of the top business podcasts, and you've got the YouTube channel as well. So in your own right, you're sort of a brand. But what was it like helping all these people during the lockdown? Because now we're out of it. We've been talking about the construction industry. You can't find a builder for love nor money. I mean, it's there's a huge demand now.
Completely. I mean, the construction industry has been a very candidate-led market ever since I started, and I think it's tougher now than it's ever been. Having managed the same business in the same area of recruitment for 15 years, I do know a lot of people in the West Midlands that I can either help to find that role or fill a vacancy. Having the personal brand element to it just accentuates the ability that the business still comes to me. And I think you get referred. You can go to networking groups and you're already known before you've got there. And it all goes hand in hand to help develop and grow that business. In terms of people that I've mentored and helped over the last 18 months, it's about giving them confidence to be able to put themselves into a situation that some people find very difficult, putting videos on social media, talking about how successful you are. A lot of people find that really difficult. And it's giving people an avenue to be able to do that in a strategic way, to emphasise that they are really good at what they do and people should approach them when they need some help.
And you've been doing that and you'll continue to do that. And you wrote this book, the second one, A Personal Brand Story, because of lockdown, did you, I presume?
Yeah, I mean, it was inspired by lockdown. It was inspired on the basis that I am a very quiet, unassuming person, and I've had to put myself through, I suppose, the comfort zone to do things I would perhaps never have dreamed of before the pandemic. And it's elevated me to new levels. And this is the story that actually sometimes perhaps you don't fit the profile. Perhaps you are a little bit nervous or scared of doing things that are outside of that comfort zone. But it's hopefully going to inspire and motivate people to put a foot forward and go and try and do something that differentiates them.
And quite a bit of satisfaction in helping out these people, not just in the West Midlands, but in different countries around the world, to give them that inspiration and confidence over lockdown.
100%, because we're all on a journey. And if you can go with lots of other people that give you pats on the back when you need it and that lift up and that element of praise or confidence boost, then the more the merrier, I say.
Steve Guest with us. His new book, A Personal Brand Story. He's a recruitment expert from Walsall. He's been doing his bit to help others during the lockdown. Steve, pleasure to have you on the show. Keep up the good work.
Thank you very much. Absolute pleasure.
Paul Franks. BBC.